We were
chatting, then the environment was cleaned up.
The first time I was hearing about this stuff, it was totally new to me.
With social impact consulting. Hello everyone, my name is Efwa Elens Ede with Social Impact Consulting. I'm a development consultant with 20 years of experience working with NGOs, international NGOs, and bilateral agencies to work in project support, monitoring and evaluation, and civil society strengthening. So now, I saw that local NGOs lack the capacity to manage large-scale projects, which can in turn impact their various communities because they have the connection based on their backgrounds. So this made me create this channel so that I can add value to you for free once you subscribe to this channel and get notified of upcoming videos. I look forward to hearing from you.
Society organizations are critical, very critical to development. They are critical to state building. They are also critical to promoting sustainable development in any society. And there's no society that advances its growth or records advancement in its growth trajectory without an active and a viral civil society. Because whether be it a democratic or a developmental state, an active civil society is central to actualizing that kind of state.
Society is the people's voice of the people, from the people, speaking on issues of critical importance to them. Beyond the arms of government, beyond the government activities, the individuals or group that supports what the civil society group, be it in the rural area, be it as a traditional organization, religious organization, or social organization, be it a labor, be it economic group, be it business association, in as much as they are not state institutions. These are civil society organizations that are working, to enhance the quality of life of their people using different approaches that is relevant to them.
Society, when you look at the word civil and when you look at the word society, I look at it from the angle of, people coming together, organizing, coming together with one voice, with one demand, basically pushing for rights, pushing for political and social, rights of people, or for yourself, or group, a certain group of people. So for me, it's about demanding, coming together and demanding for the rights of a particular set of people. And I look at it from the angle of the Inclusive Friends of Association, where what we do basically is to promote the human rights of persons with disabilities, strengthening their voices so we can speak up for one purpose, for one cause, ensuring that we promote access and inclusion, equity and justice for people with disabilities.
We were
chatting, then the environment was cleaned up.
The first time I was hearing about this stuff, it was totally new to me.
With social impact consulting.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for showing up for another wonderful episode of the Development Sector Series, which is Dev Sector Series. again, if you are watching from anywhere in the world, please make sure you put your name, where you're watching from, so that I can thank you personally, okay? Ensure you also like and share this video so that it gets to more people. I'm going to be joining on Twitter pretty soon, but just stay tuned. Also, platforms like LinkedIn don't let me chat directly on the streaming platform. So just bear with me. I will respond to you after the broadcast. Okay. Now, the video you just watched is the behind the scenes conversations of Unsold Impact, which is a documentary that's coming up pretty soon. We're in post production on the role of civil society in national development. It is actually a 4-part documentary talking about education, nutrition, health, and marginalized groups, and the critical role of civil society. We can already talk about the impact of civil society in the electoral process right now, especially talking about voter education, voter registration, and also even the Electoral Act that just passed. It was the role of civil society. So I'm going to be posting about this in the upcoming weeks, behind the scenes footage, some of the snippets of some of the interviews that I conducted. So just make sure once you see those videos, make sure you like and share, okay? So that it gets to more people, because as a content consumer myself, it is only things that I like and share that show up on my feed. So if you want more of this kind of information on your Facebook feed, on your LinkedIn feed, or even on your YouTube, just make sure that you like, share, and with YouTube, make sure you also subscribe. Your support means so much to me. I thank you. You guys give me the energy to stay consistent. Look, very soon it's going to be 2 years that I've been working on the development sector series, and it's because of people like you that give me the energy to be able to do so. So again, we're on editing mode on Untold Impact, and I'm also working on another documentary talking about the 2022 Civic Space Outlook. That one is coming pretty soon, and I look forward to it. I'm just excited that as an advocacy professional that I'm able to share, to advocate for civil society and their role in the grand scheme of things through the medium of content creation. So I'm very excited. Again, ring, 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 ring. Leap Africa is 20 years old, like I said last week, okay? 20 years of impact, 20 years of leadership, 20 years of development. And that is very much needed in Nigeria today. Now, Femi Taiwo, the executive director, is actually a part of this documentary as well. And they were so kind enough to be able to share with me some of their fellows who are really maximizing social impact. Very excited. Like last week, we spoke to Dr. Abiodun Adereni, who is the CEO and founder of Help Mom. So this is, working to address, the maternal and child mortality rate in Nigeria. So I'm getting ready to talk to another special guest who is addressing the dismal percentages of out of school youth in Nigeria, okay? And a large percentage of them are products of the Almajiri system, okay? So we're going to be talking to Mohammed Sabo Keana, who is the founder and team lead of Almajiri Child Rights Initiative. We're going to be talking about a few things. We'll be talking about the Almajiri system, past, present, and future. When I was researching for this broadcast, this issue is bigger than we even give it credit for. It's a huge issue. It's affecting our economy. It's affecting our security in Nigeria. So while I've said all that, you all, allow me to introduce to some and present to others, Mr. Mohammed Sabo Keana. Hello. How are you today?
Hi, good to see you.
Good to see. I think you are open in two different windows. If you can close one so that it doesn't is not as echoey.
Okay, so how do I do that?
I don't know. Okay, you know what? I'll kick you out of one. Maybe that would help. So I'll
Yeah,
kick you out of one.
on the
Okay.
YouTube. So
Oh, the one on the YouTube. Okay, let me kick
you
you
can
out of
take
the
the
one on you.
one on
Okay,
YouTube.
let me kick you out of the one on YouTube, and then you'll keep you on the one on. All right. So let me add you here. There you
Perfect.
are. Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us because I know you're
Of
extremely
course.
busy because what you're working on is a thankless job and it's something that needs our attention in a huge way. So before I ask you to tell us about the system and go into the questions, look, you are a brilliant guy. You went to some of the best schools. You went to Ahmadu Bello University. You went to the Nigerian Defense Academy. I mean, you could be doing anything. So why are you dealing with the Almajiri rights right now? Why did you pick this issue to tackle?
Okay, thank you very much. And permit me to really wish Leap Africa happy 20th
Yes,
anniversary.
yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, I mean, I could say a lot about Leap Africa and
Mhm.
the impact they also had on me, So
Mm.
they are really close to my heart as well. So happy birthday,
Yeah,
Leap
yeah,
Africa. Yeah.
yeah.
So thank you so much for
Mhm.
inviting me to your development sector series program. And this is nice. I mean, it helps to showcase some of us, what we're doing, and all of that. Um, to answer your question, why do I do what I'm doing instead of other
Yes.
things? Um, I mean, my question is that my response to that is I'm doing what I'm doing because of two reasons. One, because of my shared humanity as a human being who have empathy. I couldn't imagine myself being in the shoe of the Almajiri children, the way they are, the way they have to beg before they eat, the way they sleep, the condition of abuse and exploitation they go through, and the fact that they miss out on formal education, and and they are not able to have a clear sense of what their future would be like, and so that sense of empathy, that sense of humanity, being concerned for your fellow human being, fellow citizen, is really what motivates me to be a voice for them. And then the second thing has to do with patriotism as a concerned citizen of Nigeria. I I've been saying this, that we cannot afford to move forward as a country, as a society, without addressing the plight of millions of our citizens, like the Almajiri children, who are in the condition and situation we see them today.
Okay.
Whatever progress we make, economically, socially, educationally, anything, will be brought down or back because of the failure of bringing this group of children along. I mean, the catchphrase of the Sustainable Development Goal agendas is leaving no one behind. Okay. And that means everybody needs to move forward in the development agenda of the country. So, in a situation where you have millions of children like the Almajiri children, there's no way you can, as a country, you can achieve your sustainable development goal agenda or whatever development goal plan you have as a country. There's no way you can achieve that. And so having that realization as a citizen make me to really, really say, look, we've got to do something about this. I'm an emerging leader. I don't want to become, I don't want to grow up and then still face with this issue. And that's why I felt it's necessary to begin to do something at a younger age, um, till when we become much able to really do something more drastic about it.
Okay. Thank you so much for that response. So let's go into it. So tell us about the Almajiri system.
Okay, so the Almajiri system of education is a system of education that is common in northern part of the country and in some West African nation. So the system has been in existence for more than 300 to 400 years. So it's not a new thing, and it started as a way, very, very genuine reasons for it was to really educate young Muslims from the northern part of the country on Quranic education and religious life, Islamic religion, And so it started as a way where parents who desire their children to learn the Quran, but so they send their children miles away to another community to really get this education under the tutelage of a malam, who lives far away from their parent. And so it was a really nice program, education system then, where children get to learn about Quran and religion and Islamic religion. So it's not something as if it's a bad something. It was a way where children get to learn. I mean, it was in existence even before the coming of the colonial masters, and the research has shown that a lot of the administrative work that was done by the colonial masters were done by some of the students of the Almajiri system of education. A lot of them grew up to become judges and all of that at that time, So it, in a simple and simple time, it was an informal education system that teaches children religious education, way years before the coming of the formal education system that we are now on using today.
Okay. Thank you for that response. Now we're going to now transition to the way it is in the present. So, how did the system become corrupted over the years?
Okay, so historically, I'm not a good student of history. I mean, but then the system became corrupted. I think when the colonial masters really came on board to the country to colonize the northern part of the country, so they introduced the formal education, the Western education type of education we were seeing today, to the northern part of the country that have been used to the Almajiri system of education, and as a result of that, a lot of the system and structure that were put in place to support the Almajiri system, as it were then, where children don't have to beg, where they are not really exploited the way we see today, was really dismantled. Just to also mention that before the coming of the colonial masters and the Western education, the Almajiri system was supported by Zakat in the northern part of the country. The community kind of come together to support the children and all of that. And even the malams and the children and the student, engage in some form of farming or activities that sustain them. But the coming of the Western education and introduction of the Western education system was the point where the system began to get dismantled in a way. And as a result of that, the Malam and the student devised and seek for an alternative means to really sustain themselves. And that is where the genesis of the begging and all of that began to happen. Okay, so that could be the genesis of the corrupt practice or the issue we begin to see associated with the Almajiri system. But having said that, one cannot entirely say or put the blame on the fact that the Western education system caused the disruption or the corruption of the Almajiri practice. Because of the development over time, because of population explosion, things are meant to change. Okay, the zakat system or the support system of the Almajiri children were community voluntarily give out food to them, support them. All of these were meant to change because of development, So beside the fact that the support system of the old Almajiri system was disrupted by the colonial government, development again, okay, and the population explosion is another factor that has really contributed to what we are seeing today, because everybody became either focused and concerned about their own economic situation. They are not able to voluntarily support the children the way they used to do before, and the children become even more for the Malam, and it became overwhelming. As it became overwhelming, the capacity of the Malam or the system that was supporting them will go down. And as the capacity of the system that supports them go down, it's only going to be natural that they will be seen on the street begging and seeking for alternatives to fend for themselves. So these are some of the factors that has resulted to what we now see on the Almajiri system.
Okay, so it's not like you're saying that it was you said as a result of the introduction of Western education, but that also came with its own challenges and population increase, which now came up with its own challenges, that the Malams became overwhelmed with the number of people that were caring, that they were responsible for. I saw another comment here. I believe it was on LinkedIn or Facebook. I know it was on Facebook by Baraka Suleiman. It says, inclusive of the genesis of that corrupt practice is the neglect of parents on their responsibilities. So he also included that, and I felt like that was maybe relevant to our discussion. So now we're going to now go into the government now. So how has the government tackled this issue of homelessness and poverty resulting from the Almajiri system? How have they been able to, I don't know, cover the bleed, or so to speak?
Yeah, right from the failure of the government, right from the colonial period, in really addressing the situation, has really been one of the reasons and why the system was sustained and even linger up to this point we're talking about, And one would have, when the Western education was introduced, if the government then, the then government, if they were able to really incorporate the Western education and the form and the religious, it already considered them simultaneously, we will not be in the situation we are today. There were suspicions about the Western education because the parent thought it was an attempt to Christianize the children and all of that. But enlightenment would have really do a lot of good, to address the issue, but that was not done. And for me, it's also one of the basic thing that the government has failed to do in addressing this situation that of the Almajiri system way far too long, So what we have seen over the years about government intervention effort towards addressing the stress situation of the Almajiri children and the poverty is that of a quick fix approach to the problem and not really addressing the root causes of that exacerbated the problem, And when you are intervening to just address the pattern of a problem, okay, you will just continue repeating yourself year in, year out without able to address the problem in a sustainable manner. And that is what we have seen in the pattern of government. And what has been the pattern of the government? children are on the street, and that means, and then the alarm will be that, oh, the Nigeria has a high number of out of school children. And then the response of the government will be, okay, let's build school. Because we have a high number of children in the street, and they build school, and either call it Almajiri school, or they introduce some numeracy and literacy classes for these children at some selected Almajiri schools, as a way to address the homelessness and the poverty resulting from the Almajiri system. But those are reactive response to addressing social issues that are deeply entrenched in culture and tradition. And that will not take you anywhere. That will not solve the problem. But unfortunately, that has been the pattern of government efforts to tackle the problem right from the 60s to the 80s to the 90s. And just more recently, the Jonathan School that was built, I mean, it was a real ambitious project that was aimed to address the problem. But again, it was reactive and not a proactive way, okay? And that's why it didn't work, So unfortunately, even this government, what they are trying to do around the issue is also going on the same pattern of reactive response rather than a proactive one that addresses the root cause of the problem. So what the government have done to address the issue over the years has been a quick fix intervention programs and services that produce quick impact result, or that is intended to produce quick impact result that are not coherent with the development aspiration of the children and the country. The development aspiration of the children is for them to be able to grow up and become empowered to live a fulfilled life. And the development aspiration of the country is for those children who grow up to become engineer, doctor, to contribute to the development of the society. But when you have programs that are not coherent, if you have humanitarian program or interventions that are not coherent with the development of the children and the country, it would fail. And what I want to tell you in a nutshell is that effort of the government over the last 50 to 40 years to aim at addressing this has not yielded meaningful result. And that's why the number are increasing rather than decreasing. So the response have not really been the approach has not really been has not really been strategic enough to address the root cause of the problem. And so I can just say that their response has not has been failing, and is unfortunately is continuing to fail if they do not approach the issue with a system lens.
Okay. And I think, the conducting longitudinal studies is a very expensive undertaking. And I don't think one of the issues that we have is data. You get what I'm saying? All we're seeing is results of things that are constantly happening. And a longitudinal study would give them a sense of, okay, what can we do, to try to tackle this issue. So now let's go into the Almajiri Child Rights Initiative. So how have you been able to tackle some of these issues in your own capacity?
Yes, so for us as an initiative, when we started, we realized the fact that the system or the issue is not given the due consideration or attention that it really deserves. It's one of a huge problem, and one of the major obstacles to the socio-economic development of the northern part of the country. And it's one of the highest contributor of the out of school children in Nigeria. Nigeria now, Nigeria occupy that enviable position as having the highest number of children of out of school children in the world, and more than
Enviable.
50 you know, so more than 50% of the whole is at this group of children, but yet there is where it doesn't seem to alarm us and as a country. And so our first approach towards addressing this was to say, look, how do we make this, how do we bring critical visibility about this issue, not just to the government, but to other duty bearers, like the international institutions and organizations that have the capacity to either pressure the government to do something or even bring resources that will help in addressing this problem in a more sustainable manner. So as an organization, our first approach was that of really creating the awareness and bringing the issue to the policy level, towards addressing this situation. So that was one of our prevention and intervention and response. One the other initiative that we have adopted in trying to address this is also engage in a preventive measure, which is behavioral change campaign at the community level, to really explain to the parent about the importance of Western education, and also the child protection concerns that their children face in the Almajiri system, when they send them to the Almajiri system of education. That is on one hand. The other hand is also accountability. How do parents also engage in accountability of the things that their children need? At the heart of the whole of this has to also be with failures of governance at the community level. A lot of us will think the parents, the question that Baraka sent was about parents abdicating their responsibility. That is, on one hand, you can say is true, but on the other hand, we have seen that at the heart of the problem is that there are no educational system in most of this local community where these children come from. Not
Really?
even the religious one, nor the formal education one that we want.
Wow.
And so the parent don't have there's no alternative for them rather than to send these children away to just have any form of education, for them. So part of what we also do is to say, look, you have elected officials, hold them accountable to bring this, localize this educational intervention for you so that your children can have access to this education in your community. And the other thing we do is also resource mobilization to support those who have been caught up in the practice. So we have initiatives like the Almajiri Child Goals Day, where we try to encourage communities where these children live to just kind of offer any form of support to them, because it's not their fault. We cannot continue to really treat them it's not their fault as children to be where they are. It is the fault of their parent, it's the fault of the government, So while we are holding government accountable, while we're trying to change parents' behavior, we're also mobilizing resources to support those who are in the system, who are caught up in the system, So the other initiative we also do is policy advocacy, engaging with state government, engaging with institutions on introducing or addressing some of the existing policy that could really reform the Almajiri system, because the reason why successive government intervention have failed is because they have not really been reform of the system. If you don't reform the system, there is no way you can have a sustainable intervention. It will always fail. There are fundamental components of the Almajiri system that needs to be addressed, that need to be reformed before any intervention can be sustainable towards addressing it. So these are the four-pronged approach that we, Almajiri Chara Initiative, are taking to tackle the issue as
Okay.
an NGO, because
Okay.
there's much that we can do. Yeah.
Understood. So you pretty much do, awareness
Policy
and engagement,
advocacy,
policy
resource
advocacy.
mobilization, behavioral change campaigns at the community level.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for that, because that is very much needed. So one more question. So how do you plan to scale? Since this is such an issue, how do you plan to scale up your intervention so that it gets to as many LGAs, it gets to as many states as possible, and even engaging people on the local government level and the communities?
So for us, we are support and advocacy initiative, and
Okay.
as a advocacy and accountability initiative, um, I think we have skill in terms of our advocacy, because
Okay.
we have advocacy presence in more than 50 or across 15 northern states.
Okay.
One of the advocacy strategies that we have developed to be able to scale our initiative, as the Almajiri Chara did, we initiated. It's a day that we mark every year to say that every community, every state government should really talk about this issue, tell us what they are doing about it, and all of that. And our member across the state engage government on what they are doing. So we have been able to develop that strategy to scale our advocacy presence across the state. And if in terms of, even though as an advocacy organization, the direct service delivery to the victims is not really part of your job, but
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
of the peculiarity of the situation of the children, we've incorporated a support aspect of what we do. And I mean, what is quite different from what we do differently as an organization is that we are not just doing the advocacy, we are doing a solution-oriented advocacy.
I see.
Okay, now beyond saying government do something, beyond saying we're mobilizing resources to support the children, what have been focused on in the last 4 to 5 years is to develop a sustainable model or approach to bring an end to the Almajiri children on the street in a more sustainable manner. So we have been able to conceptualize a model that we call class, community
Okay.
learning Almajiri school system. We
Okay.
believe if the class model and concept is being adopted, um, it can be replicated from one community to another community, from another state, and we can systematically reduce the number of these children on the street over a long-term period. And
I
we
see.
have begun to pilot that in Kaduna State. We have not fully piloted, but at least we've built a functional school in that community. What we want to do next is also to see how we can make the Almajiri, the religious school in the community functional, and then the formal education functional, and then we'll see how to address the other factor that helps to drive the process, which is poverty or economic situation of the parent in that community. And so we want to see how we can be able to address the three or the various factors that interact to push the system in
I
one
see.
community. Once that is done, we can be able to replicate it in the next community and the next community and the next state and all that. So that is our approach to scale in terms of the awareness side, and in terms of the impact, the direct service, or the more tangible solution to tackling the problem. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that is quite comprehensive. Okay, so we're going to now go into your recommendations. So you've talked about the pilot. So if you have anything else you wanted to add, and as we know, we're in an election year, so even having this conversation in and having recommendations on how we integrate the children into formal education. I'm Catholic, so like when we are able to institute religion with formal education, you find out that the children are quite rounded. You understand what I'm saying? Instituting faith along with their education. So what are your recommendations to government? Because if it's done properly, you get what I'm saying. These schools can compete with the top schools in the world, you know.
Absolutely.
So, what do you recommend in terms of reintegrating the Almajiri school system and the formal education so that it's something that the community accepts, it's something that can be implemented easily by government, and it just helps us with a sustainable society? And of course, we talked about the sustainable development goals, you know, which is into the next question. But just if you can provide some recommendations for us, that would be great.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, the Almajiri situation is not education alone. Okay. And because a lot of intervention have been centered around education alone and neglecting the other component of the problem,
Okay.
it keeps failing.
I
You know,
see.
yeah. So has been a very, very, very a tricky one for institution, for government. Everybody that talks about Almajiri situation, what really strike for them is that they are out of school, they need education, and then interventions that are then focused towards them will then be centered around education. And once you center your intervention around education, you will you will lose sight or focus of other needs of the Almajiri child. And once you do that, then the education becomes will not the intervention will not be sustainable. And I tell you from the Maslow hierarchy of human need, education for a child is at the lowest of the pyramid.
True.
So if you don't have a sustainable means of giving Almajiri child food, decent shelter, access to healthcare, a sustainable means. So don't think you have billions of naira
So,
that
so can you make it like a hostel of some sort? Like
so
yeah, like so if it's a hostel, they come to school, it's kind of like a boarding school of sorts. And then you know what I mean? So it's not
I
just them going to school and coming back or coming to school with an empty stomach, but
ex-
going to school and they actually live there, and then there's a structure, and then the malams are there. You know, some of us that went to boarding school, you have activities that you do outside school. You have your siesta, you have your nap. Those who do Christian activities, they do. Those who do Islamic activities, they do. But it's just you get what I'm saying. It can
yes,
be integrated where, and then obviously whatever program it is, they need to have some sort of livelihoods for the parents. You understand what I'm saying? So that the parent, because sometimes it's because of poverty that
that's
parents
sending.
send their children to the Almajiri system. Even Christians, you have people in the villages sending their children to other people in the city that end up marginalizing them, abusing them, and all sorts of nefarious activities. It's just an issue that needs to be very comprehensive. It has to have a very comprehensive approach. So I'm just looking at it, and I feel like we dibble dabble on an issue that could be as straightforward as could possibly be, but they've gotten it out of hand in the
Yeah,
past couple of decades. So you can't say is the Buhari administration or is it Jonathan or not even the Obasanjo. You have to go back to the colonial masters. So now we're saying, okay, how do we fix this? I'm sorry I'm so passionate about this, but this is such an issue that children
yeah,
are just being marginalized. And
yeah.
like when a child is coming to beg me for money, I'm like, you're going to give this money to some jerk that's going to keep marginalizing you in the first place. So where do we go from there? Where do we go from here? So that's kind of the way it has to be a very comprehensive, holistic approach, where and it needs to go, like you said, it needs to go in the community level to educate parents and teach them livelihoods. Okay, so what are the crops is it farming you're going to be doing? Is it some small scale processing? How do you do from farm to table? Like, it has to be very granular. But my problem and my frustration, especially because I'm an advocacy person, my frustration is that we have great policies to implement problem. And it's a very frustrating, and I'm sure you're an advocacy professional because it's an advocacy organization you're running. It's very, 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 very frustrating. You advocate for a policy, you now say, okay, let's implement. Then there are so many holes all over the place. So it's just, so can you just, I know I've just done I've just done a bit of a rant, but what do you feel are your recommendations in trying to reintegrate the children into formal education, or what approach? You talked about the class approach. Is there anything else you want to add to that, especially as we're transitioning to a new government?
Yes. So yeah, exactly what you said. The thing is, so for me, the recommendation would be, okay, localized intervention at the community level. Okay, so we need to really if you map you need to shift your intervention and bring it to the community level where these children come from. So once you do that, then we can begin to really see a change in the issue. We can be able, once you have your intervention localized at the community level, it will address the issue of abuse of the children on the street. It will address the issue of hunger for the children. It will address the issue of access to education for the children, both the religious education and the formal education for the children. So it's not about it's not about continuing with the old ways of intervening at the urban centers where the Almajiri schools are, but really bringing the situation from at the community level to address the proximal context of the child's survival and development. Because even the Convention on the Right of Children really stress the need for family support so that they can be able to support.
Sorry, there's some background noise. Is it time for prayers, or I can hear some background?
Yeah, it's quite far. Let me move a bit here.
Okay.
So
okay.
I hope it's less now, I think.
Yeah, it's less now.
Yeah. So we need to first of all really localize intervention, increasing investment in education in the rural community, both the religious education system and the formal education system, and encouraging the fact that these children could have both education within the comfort of their community, where they can go in the morning to religious school, and or the formal school in the morning, and then go to the religious one in the evening, and then having some sort of livelihood support program to support the parents so that they can be able to also support their children in school. So largely it is more about increasing investment in education at the community level, because in most cases there are no education in the community level. There are inadequate teachers, inadequate classes, and in some places there are none at all. So when there is no alternative to this social norm, okay, the system will continue, the children will continue to be sent into the urban center, and we will continue to see them on the street. So it is as simple as it's not as simple as that, but then this is a very basic reality. We have very inadequate school in Nigeria. very, very, I mean, you know, the education program, there are no classes, there are no teachers. So some of the parents who have engaged, they will say, okay, we want our children to go to school, but where is the school? There's no school in the village. And then this Almajiri, this thing that they grow up knowing becomes an alternative for them. And in addressing the social norm, you need to, the first thing you need to do, beside the information intervention, enlightening them, is to provide an alternative. If you don't provide alternative, you cannot implement any law, you cannot implement any policy that can address it. Your policy must be to provide alternative. And then you can be able to use policy tools like conditional cash transfer to address the poverty that contributes to the issue. So the recommendation will be increased investment in the education in the rural community. Okay, use policy tools like conditional cash transfer to support parents and skills that they can be able to use to support their children. Engage in massive and strategic information intervention to be able to explain the importance of the education for the children, and also enlightening them about the child protection concerns that these children face on the street: abuse, exploitation, and even ritual killings. You know, so once you'll be able to have these three things as government, I believe it will really, really go a long way in addressing the issue. But once you don't have investment that address the issue of education at the rural level, you don't have a social welfare program that address poverty, and people are still they are still used to their cultural way of sending children to the urban center. So the problem will really continue. So information intervention, social welfare program at the community level, and increase investment in education at the community level. So the whole the central message is about localizing intervention at the community level. You know, because there's no time. There's no time to really go into the details. But I have done the analysis about addressing the problem at the city centers and at the community level. Which one is going to be feasible? Which one is going to be sustainable? And as a government, you will, if you are trying to implement a program, the first thing you need to do is to see which one is feasible, which one is sustainable, and which one is even cheap. It's easy for you to implement in terms of cost. Exactly. And so my recommendation is, if you do it at the community level, it's going to be more sustainable, it will be feasible, and it will be cost effective for you. So okay, those are a few recommendations.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I'm just going to just touch on this question. We'll just talk about it just for like a minute or so, and then we have quite a few comments and questions or in the comment. This is a very thought-provoking conversation. So it says here, Nigeria has the highest number of out of school children in the world. When I saw that, I'm like, higher than China, that has over 2 billion people, higher than India, that has 1.6, 1.7 billion people. That's huge. So is there hope based on these interventions you've talked about? And if we have an enabling government, a government that's more receptive to interventions like yours, is there hope for curbing these numbers and going on our journey towards meeting the UN SDGs by 2030?
Yes, there's absolutely hope to really reduce this number. Okay, if we approach the issue with a system lens, and if you address it, of course, addressing an issue with system lens is going to take a lot of time before you see the result. But I can assure you that there are quick results that can be seen if you address the issue from a system perspective, where you address it from the from the root cause. Gradually, like increasing the number of schools. You talk about China and India. What it would interest you to know that is that I will not say with authority, but I can assure you that if there is no the issue of access in terms of educational facility is no more an issue for those countries. Okay, but the educational facility in Nigeria is an issue. Okay, so the issue of teachers, the availability of school, and all of that, we all have that. Unless we close those, unless we address those issues, we cannot be able to really get the children to school. So yes, we can be able to. We cannot achieve it completely, but we can make progress if we begin to really increase investment at the rural level, increasing because the why I keep saying rural level is that all the children cannot come to the city to come and do primary
They
education.
can't. They
They
can't.
can't now. So we need to do it is at the rural level, and so the House of Assembly, House of Reps, and they could really champion this. So in part of the class has different component, and there's constituency learning Almajiri school where strategic this school is this school the school can be situated as at the constituent level. I mean, it is a whole lot of concept that we're really thinking and how, but it's achievable if only we are going to do it from a system approach where we take it gradually and then addressing it from the root cause. So yes, we can achieve the SDG. We cannot because I mean it's just 8 more years, but we can really make progress if we mean to do it by taking the real policy initiative.
Thank you so much for that. So I'm going to go down to the comments. I have quite a few. By, let's see. Here is from LinkedIn by Charles Chibuizi Ehiemere. Thanks for joining us again this week. Just curious about how many elite and rich people within that region are part of the Almajiri system.
Yeah. So yes, some of the elites went through the Almajiri system, but they don't have their children as Almajiri, and that really point to the fact that it's not a cultural practice, it's not a religious practice. Okay, where some people would think that it's a cultural practice, a religious practice. It is none of this. It is a social norm, and the social norm is an habitual practice. People engage in it over time, and they become used to it. And so you just need to change people's mindset. You need to enlighten them, and they're able to, and then they're able to really see reason. But again, for you to address a social norm, you must provide alternative to it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
There are rich people are not part of their children are not part of it, of course.
Okay, so I think I have quite a few comments by Baraka Sulaiman here. And this is on Facebook. It says, if the government came to the rescue of the system of Almajiri education, it would have control. It will have controlled the movement and manner of learning in the Almajiri system. Also, the voluntary malams, if well coordinated, they will as well train the massive number of children by way of using olden days method of teaching and learning with less cost. Furthermore, it may interest you to know that such Almajiri system, they are very loyal to the compliance to the tune of their malam. And I think he wrote too many words for the platform. I think he said here, to buttress the results of the awareness side in Katsina State, we have a mini pilot project where we engage a few Almajiri Western education and still attending the Almajiri Islamic studies, and they are doing well in the activities. Then here he says, taking the schools needed in the rural areas and upgrading the Almajiri system will really help, because these Almajiri systems are literate in the field. They are being trained. I think he's also buttressing some of the points that we made
No,
in the broadcast.
so if you're talking about,
Mhm.
so Baraka Suleiman is our Katsina state coordinator.
Okay.
So in fact, she's leading. They are piloting some of the concept, the class idea we are really proposing.
Okay.
So
Okay.
all what she said is quite in line with exactly what I was also talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That is awesome. So again, this was a very, very enlightening conversation on the Almajiri system, because a lot of times, when the narrative is not being controlled, there is always a preconception. And look, I don't know whether there is, and this is just my thought on it. I don't know whether there is a strategic reason why they don't want to fix the Almajiri system or whatever, because I feel like some of these children are being tools for electoral violence, tools for election rigging, tools for insecurity. You know what I mean? Recruiting
Mhm.
into so many bad, nefarious activities, not because there's something wrong with them, but because they need to survive. So we need to figure out ways to make it holistic. They should just put a bunch of boarding schools in the rural areas. Let them start from when they are young. Let them start teaching them. Then the Malams, maybe they are associated with one school that's in this local government, and then they just put them in boarding schools, feed them, clothe them, train them. They come out, they take their common entrance exam. There's a secondary school, and then they are
Exactly.
competitive, do WAEC, and then are able to. I mean, you can't really say it's part of the Islamic religion, because you have some of the best doctors in UAE, in Great Egypt, other Islamic countries. So you can't really say it's religion. Religion has anything to do with it. Like you said, it's a cultural norm that you said from the childhood level and from parents, because my child will learn from me and their father. So it's like, how do you really work with the parents to change their mindset? But
Yeah.
anyway, that's just some from what I've been looking up and from some of the conversations that I'm having with you today. But anyway, do you have any final thoughts for us?
Um, I mean, it's a great pleasure to talk to you today and to share some of my thought around what we're doing, and to say thank you for inviting us to be part of your platform. And um, it's nice talking to you, and I wish you all the best in your other series.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mohammed.
Of
This was a
course,
great discussion, and we'll be talking again some other time. All right.
it's my
Take
pleasure.
care.
Thank you so much.
No
Bye.
problem. Take care. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching the Development Sector Series, which is Dev Sector Series. Again, continue to like and share this broadcast. Those of you who have already watched it, it's not too late to like and share on whatever platform that you're watching it in. Why? Because this is evergreen content. People can watch it at any time. Okay, it helps the algorithm. Like I said, as a content consumer myself, the only things that show up on my feed is what I'm interested in, is what I like, it's what I share. So please, please, please like and share this conversation if it's something that you're interested in. Okay. Also, on my platform, I'm going to be sharing behind the scenes footage and snippet conversations on Facebook Reels, on Instagram Reels, you know what I mean? So if you see them, please make sure you like, make sure you share, so that it gets to more people, because we need to really be in control of the narrative on what civil society has done in our great nation of Nigeria, and even in our great continent. So we need to make sure that we have the narrative on the role of civil society. And guess what? We are civil society. So that's what we want to communicate to the public, and I cannot do that without you. So once you see that on your feed, make sure you like and share. Again, you all, we're going to be having conversations with quite a few Leap Africa fellows. I'm very excited because these are young people doing what they can to change the world. Jay, you heard Mohammed, very sound person talking about what he and his organization are doing on on addressing what's going on with the Almajiri child. Okay, and it also helped even sensitize those of us that don't know anything and don't know much about the Almajiri system. So we're going to be having some more conversations in the month of June with Lead Africa Fellows. So next week there's going to be another wonderful episode, and I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. Not too long after the Dev Sector series, I am going to be commenting. And those of you who commented, I'm just gonna say a personal thank you to each and every one of you. Take care, and let's change the world together. See you next week again, Wednesday at 12 noon.